This is part 8 in my full collection video series, and it's going to focus on large fixed blade knives. There will be some knives that do not fit that category simply because I forgot to put them in the small to medium fixed blade knife video, but these are large blades. You're going to see lots of cold steel, Tops knives, you're going to see Randall made knives, you're going to see a few custom large knives, some Bark River knives, but none of it is going to be in order. I'm very daunted by making this. There's going to be no denying that I have a lot of knives and probably too many in doing this. And if it hasn't been apparent through the other videos, but these are just large. So let's get started. This is the Work Tough Gear Puzon Predator Hunter Bowie. This was one of my favorite purchases from 2023. I got it early in 2023 and was so psyched to get it. This handle is amazing with the big horse hoof pommel. You really can hold on to this. This area right here, you think that would be uncomfortable. It's incredibly comfortable for getting up close if you're doing feather sticking with this, heaven help you. But just a big bruiser of a knife. It's got about a 1/4 inch spine, and for as wide as it is and as broad and big as it is, it's still pretty wieldy. Though I do find this area of the handle slightly overly bulbous. But for someone with giant mitts, that might be very comfortable. This is the Work Tough Gear Puzon Predator Hunter Bowie. Next up is the Cold Steel Chaos Kukri. The Chaos is a series from them, from Cold Steel Knives, based around this aluminum cast knuckle duster and skull crusher here. And so they have it here with the Kukri blade. This was a gift from my awesome brother. Thank you, Vito, as always. And it also comes, you can get this with a double-edged dagger, with a tanto, with a Bowie. And then they have this ridiculous one where there's one of these on both sides and a blade protruding up the top. It looks like a Conan the Barbarian sort of. Have two of those and enter the pit fighting contest. Beautiful, with a nice big Kydex sheath, Secure-X sheath, and this. Do not put your hand there. It relies on that area to open up. So, Chaos Kukri. Okay, next up, just randomly grabbing, here is the, which one is SP10 Marine Raider Bowie by Ontario Knife and Tool. May they rest in peace, and hopefully they come back. But I love this. It took me forever to get it. I don't know why it took me so long to get this knife. But right after I got it, they announced they were going out of business, and I felt fortunate. Grind is not the best. Look at how the swedge meets the edge. I guess that's not that bad, but it'd be better if it were even. No matter, though, it is a big, sharp, workhorse type of a knife, and this is very grippy, this sort of rubberized handle, and it comes in a nice nylon sheath. Never thought I'd say that. This is cool here. The retention strap flies open, so you don't have to worry about it when you pull it out. And then this retention strap here you could use for travel or whatever, and then once you get where you're going, you could take it off if you needed to, if you just wanted to rely on this strap. So great knife here, a classic, and if you like it, buy one as soon as you see it, because that company is going away if it hasn't already. Here's my car knife, or my car Bowie knife. Rides in this next to the seat and the console, kind of hidden. But this is the Schrade Leroy, the SCHF 45 in, I don't know what kind of steel this is. I'm not sure. This might be that 3CR, which is actually very, very tough and great outdoor knife steel, I gotta say, for a budget knife. But I'm not sure what this is. This is a rubberized handle, full tang construction here. Just a great knife. I like it. I hate the sheath, but it's serviceable enough that I just haven't gotten around to making a Kydex sheath for it. That is the Schrade Leroy SCHF 45. Here's the new Off-Grid Knives Cayman XXL, based on their Cayman EDC and Cayman XL folders. So it sports really the same blade and the same handle shape, just sort of rearranged and rescaled to become this really great Bowie. Now, some people might say, that's not a Bowie knife, that's a clip blade. It's not a 10-inch long, and it's not a 1/4 inch thick. I'm just calling Bowie knives I'm just calling clip point knives all Bowie knives, basically, especially if they're larger like this. This would make an awesome, well, I use this as a knife that I kind of, I keep in the chair next to me at home when we're watching movies. This has become kind of a home Bowie knife. It travels around with me a lot while I'm here. Maybe that's just because it's new and I'm really psyched about the shape. And what a great knife. D2 blade steel, off-grid knives, makes great fixed blades. You'll see more of them coming up here shortly. Here's a classic. This is the Western W48 Bowie. W49. I knew I got something wrong besides saying Bowie. This was one that my brother got at a pawn shop. I love this classic Western W49 shape. And then I love the S-Guard Quillian here, or Quillians. This is very thick brass. And whoever had this went to great effort to pound this down so that it could guard his, and of course I'm saying his because you know it was a guy, his knuckles. Because I tried to bend it back and yeah, not happening. Some sort of bone here, not sure what it is, always has kind of creeped me out a little bit, gotta say. Because I don't know. To me, this was a 1% biker's knife who hit hard times or who died and then whose son brought this to the pawn shop or whatever. I don't know. This knife has some sort of story. I'm not sure what it is. And this bone, I always wonder what kind of bone is it exactly. But probably deer bone. Let's just say it's deer bone. Okay, that's the Western W49 Bowie. And then here's the Wild West Bowie from Cold Steel. Basically the same pattern, just blowed up all big. And this right here is another great big thick brass guard, and I love it. I love that big S-Guard, classic shape, swashbuckling sort of shape. And then you've got this big sharp ass blade. My gosh, sorry for the unnecessary language. I think this is 1075, made in India by Windlass Cutlery. They do some of Cold Steel's big fixed blade knives, and some of them, and some of the more historical patterns. And man, they do a great job. The one thing I don't like about their knives in particular, and there's a couple others where this has been an issue, is whatever they put on the handle is kind of coated on thickly, and it's not very good. So I, just stripped it off basically and got down to this beautiful rose-colored wood. Great Bowie here, and a great thick leather sheath with the drop D-ring thing here. Okay. Yeah. Well, we hit the deposit of Bowie blades here. So here is the Cold Steel Natchez. This is one I've wanted for so long, and finally got last year when it was released in both 3V for a small fortune, and then in this stainless steel I've never heard of called 4034 stainless steel. I think it's a Krupp steel, made in Taiwan. I don't need any super steel on my Natchez Bowie. This is just for dueling, man. I'm just taking this out on duels. I don't need something that I can baton with. This is a Musso style Bowie, so it's got that upsweep, thin front portion with a long, sharp swedge, and a coffin-shaped handle. This is just an incredible knife. Why, oh why don't they make it with a leather sheath like they used to? But an incredible knife nonetheless, and worth having a sheath made, I would say. In leather, okay, like this sheath here. This is the Laredo Bowie. This is an older one. I got this around probably 2007 or 6, something like that. And patinaed the blade, and there were some issues with this. The sheath, I don't know if you can see this here. but that's part of the reason why I patinaed it. The sheath just scratched the hell out of the blade, and this faux cocobolo here cracked almost immediately. The first winter I had it, and I was like, I'm going to send it back. And I was like, and I never did. I never sent it back. Basically, I was lazy and stupid and never sent it back. But it's mine, and the handle has never split. It's just fine. And this was just an aesthetic thing. And I love this knife. This is, with the patina on it, I think it looks like an old-timey, real old-timey fighting Bowie. And here you got the beautiful leather sheath with that awesome brass stud to keep it in your belt. So you can just slip it in your belt. Love this thing. My brother made a leather frog for this for me, so I can also hang it from a belt if need be. But when does that need arise? Luckily, so far, it has not. This would be a great knife to fight with if you had to fight with a knife. Okay, that's the Laredo Bowie from Cold Steel. Okay, here's a non-Bowie. This is the RTAC 2 from Randall's Adventure Training, from Ontario Knife and Tool. This is the Randall's Adventure Training RTAC 2. What does that say there? Ontario something. But basically, this is the precursor to the Hungless, and it's the RTAC 2. And what a great knife. Very broad, big handle, but very comfortable. This is one that if you're a giant with huge mitts, you're going to love this handle. Because, I mean, I love it. It feels good in my hand, but I know that if you grab many knife handles and you feel like you're holding on to nothing, this will be great. 1095 blade steel. It had a Cerakoting or some sort of coating that really immediately kind of started to strip, so I stripped it off a long time ago. It has a nice patina. I have a little cord on here, you know, for a whatchamacallit, in case it falls out. Swings side to side, not front and back. Lanyard, that's what I was going for. This is a custom sheath I had made, recommended by Nut and Fancy way back in the day. Okay, here. Oh, dusty sheath. This is a Von Temsky Bowie from Svord. Svord knives out of New Zealand. I say Svord like it's Swedish, but it's out of New Zealand. Really cool knife. You've got a big, heavy chunk of 1/4 inch thick steel. You hear, I think this is walnut. Very, very nice handle. 100% neutral, like a stick. Feels great to hold on to, though. And you've got the slight S bend here in the guard. Really fat swedge here. Just a big, gnarly blade. This was a gift from my brother. And an interesting story behind this is this guy Von Temsky was a kind of like a Rough Rider style dude, except in New Zealand. And he gave all of his marauders, or whatever they were, you know, guys who were civilizing the land, I guess you'd say, these. And they used them to lop off heads and to clean game and to do all sorts of stuff. So really an intimidating and large Bowie here. That's the Von Temsky from Svord. I'm going to have to clear these in a minute. Well, let's see how many I can pile on. Okay, next up is from Tops Knives. This is the Prather War Bowie in a sheath that I made. Known for its long swedge, a great fighting knife designed by this guy, Jeff Prather, who has some cool videos of him using this knife and how he carries it on YouTube. I'm thinking of one in particular, so maybe I shouldn't say videos. But just very, very fetching. I love how the blade itself is the guard, kind of like a traditional French fighting knife. And I like the coffin-shaped handle and how it widens out. It's very, very neutral. And then with the, what do they call this? The Rocky Mountain tread pattern in here, it just fits in the hand so perfectly. What a great knife. How cool would it be if that were sharp too? But that's just me. Yeah, check out how Jeff Prather carries his. He uses a Kydex sheath and has a cool lace situation where he has a great way to carry and draw this Not too large, but pretty, pretty substantial fixed blade knife. All right, here's going to be a little break of 3 medium knives that didn't make it in the medium knife video. So here is another car knife. This is accompanies the SCHF 45 Leroy Bowie. This is also a sheath that I made for this very inexpensive but super incredibly useful cold steel roach belly. And I put some texturing in the handle with a Dremel years ago, and then maybe 2 years ago, I put this jute cord on there, and man, it just feels great in hand. And I love this cheap little knife. And I met a guy who was living on the road, like camping like a vagrant. I shouldn't put it that way. He was camping. He was living on the road and camping, finding himself, and over a period of 2 years, all around America. And his one knife was a cold steel. He's like, "Oh, cold steel? I carry a cold steel." I was like, "Yeah, what is it?" Like, I was hoping it was an SRK or a Trailmaster or some classic big cold steel that he was surviving on. And he pulled out his roach belly, and I was like, "Oh, really?" And I fell in love with it right then and there. What a great knife. It's only $15 too. And a good knife to practice sheath making on, no doubt. Okay, second medium knife is actually brand new as of a couple of days before shooting this video. And always wanted a Mora companion, finally got one, and here it is. Haven't used it, super, super keen. What a great grip. And now I see why Ed Calderon says that these make great fighting knives. And he's a guy who would know. Actually, he was telling me a funny story how he was at a blade show, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And he was there with Ernie Emerson going around from table to table. And he was lurking at the Mora table and kind of like telling them how great these are for fighting. And they were kind of like, "Okay, thank you." That's not the image they're going for, but this grippy handle, and is very comfortable. It's not going anywhere. And the super sharp Scandinavian ground blade, and it's pretty neutral. You could use it in a Pikal style grip for fighting, or obviously it's a superlative camping and outdoors knife, but there are other things you could do with it. That's the sheath. I love the sheath. Clips onto anything, and it's a great utility knife. Very psyched I got that. And then third of this installment of medium or small knives is the SOG Seal Puff in an aftermarket, though SOG made and branded sheath. It didn't come with this one. This is just a outstanding knife. There's nothing that needs to be said too much about this, because Seals actually do carry this knife. This is one of those knives that is sworn by in many of the videos I watch, and I watch a lot of knife videos, as you would imagine. But yeah, this is always in my book bag / daily EDC backpack that I carry to and from work, and keep in the car and stuff. Got a lanyard on it for just in case, and fits nicely in the waistband in a pinch if I've forgotten a fixed blade and I feel like I need one on me. Okay, so back to some of the big ones. Here is a Kudaman Bowie. That's their logo. I love that elephant head and that beautiful leather sheath with the red stitching, just like in my Ferrari. That lives in my mind. It's also very fast. It's faster than your imaginary Ferrari, I'll tell you that much. So this is a micarta handled Bowie. I think that's what it goes by. Love the red liners. Again, like the Von Temsky Bowie, a super neutral stick handle. Like, these are parallel lines. That's it. They're contoured. It's very comfortable to hold on to, but there's not much to the handle, and I like that. Classic style shit. Like, when I look at this knife, this one in particular, this looks like a large size camp knife that you would see in the Montgomery Ward catalog, that they're selling to fathers of the 50s going camping. Like, something about this knife is at once kind of menacing, but at the same time, like, all American. Something about this, I don't know. Even though it's Spanish. made with that molybdenum vanadium steel, which I can never say. JBK, I believe that's Joker brand. I think they're related to Joker knives out of Spain. Incredibly sharp. And this is really good steel. Now, how do I know that? Well, I watched someone else really thump on theirs on YouTube. And so I bought it. I haven't really done much with this. I know I did a demonstration of using the swedge, which is a dull swedge, but how you can still use a dull swedge in a back cutting action in traditional Bowie knife fighting. Next up, this one just came on vacation with me. This has been through thick and thin. I've had this knife for about 30 years. I'm going on 30 years. This is the Cold Steel Trailmaster in Carbon 5 or Carbon V steel. That's a little bit of rust or something there, but the blade shape is slightly more slender than the real one because I've used this for so long and sharpened it so many times. And I was comparing it to my father's Trailmaster last year, and his has more belly, just a little bit, not too much more, but just because he hasn't used his. You can see the worn out handle here. That tarnished brass. What a great knife, man. I love this. And though it might not be, this one was made in the USA. That's how old this is. It might not be the most glamorous of Bowies that I have, but I think that with that 0 ground swedge, which is pretty sharp, if I were just to let 5 inches, let the weight of that drop on my hand, it would hurt like hell. And you could break bone and really do some serious gashing with this. Yet it's slender and very, very sharp and fully flat ground. And I just think this would be the knife. If I had to, all right, Bob, there's a circle of thugs outside and you have to knife fight in the center. What are you going to bring? I got to say, despite almost all these sweet, sweet knives, I just might grab this, the Trailmaster. The grippy handle, the shape, the weight, the balance, everything about this knife is amazing. Okay, next up, also a cold steel. This is Jimmy Slash's chopper. Thank you, Jimmy. He sent me this. Josh sent me this. This is a chopper. He does blade sports, and this is a chopper of his own design, and it's fully sanctioned, designed to meet all the requirements for a chopper blade in blade sports. It's got a 10-inch blade, a little more, I think that's like 5/16 of an inch thick. It's a chunker, and it's got an apple seed edge or convex edge and is incredibly sharp. And then this one is number 11, and a great handle, sort of offset at an angle so that blade comes down sort of preceding the swing. And then you've got a bird's beak pommel and a grippy Coke bottle shape here. What a great, great knife. This is 3V. This is one hell of a chunk of 3V. If you're into choppers and you love cold steel, or you want to help support Jimmy Slash, definitely go check this thing out. This is awesome. And I like the leather sheath. It does not have a belt loop. It's not about carrying on a belt. All right. Here is the Odin Wolf. What do they call this? Sow catcher. The Odin Wolf sow catcher. This is supposedly for hunting pigs, hunting sows and wild boars and such. And I bet it would do great at that. But to me, it's just a big, wicked, recurved dagger. Love this thing. It's nice and light. It's pretty thin blade stock. That's not, what is that? It's like maybe 3/16 of an inch thick blade stock. We'll go with that. A very light handle. Sort of a harder plastic. It's not rubberized. I don't know if you can tell what it looks like, or from what it looks like. Blade, I like this center fuller on both sides. Very sharp, and I love on a double-edged knife or on a dagger to have a recurve like that, or at least a belly, because it makes the slashing, it would make the slashing way more effective than a traditional dagger with more straight edges. Comes in a great sheath. I really like the sheath, except I don't like that this thing is riveted in there. I've wanted to cut it out many times, but I'm like, why bother? It's not like I'm going to actually carry this around slipped in my belt if I do that. So let's see. Next up here is the Cold Steel Frontier Buoy. Now this is another one made in India by Windlass Cutlery, and they did an absolutely gorgeous job. Very sharp. It's a quarter inch. No, I don't think it's a quarter inch thick. I don't know. But the blade it's just beautiful to look at. But also long and sharp. That's about 12 inches. This is another one of those handles where I had to strip off the coating that was on there. I love the oblong S shape with the longer side covering the fingers. That is really a great shape to me. And the handle, which looks boxy and uncomfortable, is not at all. So this is a very well-balanced, large buoy blade, and it comes in this great sheath with leather and a steel chape down here, and a bit of steel around the throat. But this comes off, and unfortunately, this comes with it. If that stud were left in there, this would be great for slipping in the belt carry. Okay, I'm going to move these, and because I got some drawers I got to empty out and put on this table. So as I do, I will tell you that coming up, we've got Randall knives, we've got a few custom knives, a few Bark River knives, and let's see, what else? Well, you'll see in just a second. Classic SOG. Maybe that's what I start with. The classic SOG. All right. This is great. Okay, first up, here is the SOG Super Buoy. This is one that I got when I lived in New York City. I got this probably like 2006 or something like that, 2007. Or 8 maybe. Oh, look at that. It's intoxicating. I love the double peaked shape of the SOG, just that SOG shape. But the way they executed this is OS 8A, and it's so beautifully done with the coating. This is hollow ground, very sharp, quite thin behind the edge, but a quarter inch up here, distal tapered from here to from the base to the tip here, I'm sorry, from the ricasso to the tip. It's distal tapered, and then I don't know what that coating is, but it's so great. It looks great. I haven't done anything with this knife. This has always been just a collector's piece / keep it around for home defense kind of thing. Beautiful sheath here. Of course, like I said, I got this in New York City when you couldn't own firearms. So, home defense is boiled down a little bit. Really nice sheath with a sharpening stone in it. Next up, I got this one at the Texas Custom Knife Show at a silent auction. And I was so excited that I won this because I wanted it really badly. And I've wanted this knife for a long time. This is the Cortada, and this is the large one. They have, this is designed by Doug Marcaida, and he designed a smaller one that's about that long, about 4.5 inches long. Looks the same, but it's scaled down basically. Beautiful knife, reminiscent of the Gununting sword. You got a straight edge though. Instead of a curve, it's a straight edge, but downward raked. You've got that incredible tip. You got a big swedge that you could sharpen, and then you've got this very aggressive jimping / I don't know. I think of it as a spot for trapping, and so does he actually. If you have it in reverse grip like this, probably easier to use on the smaller knife. These are his tattoos on his arm, which stand for, these are his children. He's from a warrior class. Those are the arrowheads, and he's from the island nation of the Philippines. Okay, it comes in a very nice leather sheath. Not so fond of this kind of thing here, but at least you have that so you can you can have a sort of rigid attachment to your belt. Next up, this is a custom from Dirk Pinkerton. This is called the Razorback. It's a knife that is based on two knives from two different times, eras, and places. It's based on the Hell's Bells fighting bowie by Bill Bagwell, which is a long, slender, large-swedged fighting bowie from the United States, and also the Jambaya from the Middle East, which is a curved, double-edged knife. And I really see that here. Very, very sharp, dual hollow ground edges, or dual hollow ground bevels with really sharp edges that are extremely thin. And then this beautiful micarta. This is an Elmax. And if you're unfamiliar with Dirk Pinkerton, I'm sure you know his folders, because he's got a lot of folders and folder designs licensed with many of our favorite OEMs and companies. But he also has knives under his own shingle, and then knives that he makes. When I say knives under his own shingle, this didn't make it in the full collection video because I just got it, but this is one that he's having made. It's his own design, took it through a long process, the ringed inversion, and it's really great. This one he made by hand. So he does handmade, hand-ground custom knives that are exquisite. Dirk is very well respected by his peers for his grinding prowess. He's very well respected by me for that, but also for his designs and his appreciation and love of ethnographic and historical weapons, and how he translates it into modern weapons, modern knives. This is one of those ones I put in my track pants or my pajamas or whatever, and it's nice and light, rides around in the house, never unarmed. Okay, next up is the Cold Steel Taipan. Beautiful classic dagger. This is dual or quad hollow ground bevels there. This is also, you can see from that line, this is a Sanmai, so that's two different steels there. And it's like a milder steel jacketing, the harder steel. I put a wicked sharp edge on this. It came pretty sharp, but not as sharp as I wanted it, which is very rare for cold steel. Great handle, very much in keeping with the Tonto designs, the designs that put this company on the map. This one has been around for 30 years, give or take, and I've wanted it for about that long. And it took me about that long to get it, as this one is somewhat new to me. I put my own attachment on it. Great sheath. These sheaths, the way they flare out at the top, you can actually slide them into your belt without one of these things, and they're going to stay there if your belt is cinched at all firmly. Next up is the attention to detail mercantile medium fighter. Beautiful handmade, custom-made knife by Douglas Esposito. This is before he was making these really amazing titanium frame lock folders. He was making really amazing fixed blades, and man, I'm glad I got this while he was making them, because that crown spine, this I requested tortoiseshell, and he found some great faux tortoiseshell. The brass, the S35EN, the grind is crazy, nice and thin. This is definitely a classy assassin's knife. This is like, if I were, if they said, hey Bob, we got to rush you to set. They really want you in the new John Wick movie, but you got to bring a knife. This is what I would bring, and that, don't think that hasn't happened. Happens all the time. Very, very cool. I love the jimping. It's nice and sharp, but not overwhelming. And then the fact that it's crowned just makes it super comfortable. This sheath my brother made from my design. It was an ill-fated design. He did a great job. I did a dumb thing in putting that there. Should have just had him put grommets, because this would work great, kind of kydex, like a kydex sheath. But it did come with a kydex sheath. All right, here is my Bark River Knives Boone 2. A great outdoors knife. Before I was talking about when I was talking about the Kudeman Bowie being something that an American dad of the 40s or 30s and 50s or whatever went camping with, that's what this knife is to me too. And to me, this is like a proto K-bar. This is the kind of knife that a lot of people brought. GIs had in World War II before the K-bar was the norm. Before they had that up to production, people were carrying knives very similar to it, hunting knives, and this is what that represents. This is a convex edge, as usual with Bark River knives, wicked sharp. This is 3V. Oftentimes you get 01 tool steel from them. This is 3V, very nice. Aluminum fixtures here. One issue right here, I don't know if you can see this, but the other day I slammed this into a log. I didn't even slam it that hard, but I felt this come loose, and that bummed me out. So I've been thinking about sending it to Bark River to have them fix it, but I think if I just put a little super glue and it'll probably be fine. So I don't know if I'm going to send it all the way back to Michigan. Plus, I have no experience with their customer service, and you might say, well, Bob, that's a perfect opportunity. But I'm not looking to either, you know, just looking to have my knife. A cool feature here is how you can take this and slip it under there so you can pull it in and out. You're doing work around the yard or whatever, take it in and out without having to fuss with this. And you're not cutting it either. All right. Oh, here are two prizes. Here's the Randall Made Knives 16 SFP special. I know it's not SPF. SFP, I believe it is. And I will think of it in a second. But so it's a number 16, which is the handle. Number 16 is traditionally a dive knife, but this one has the number 1 fighting blade on it. So, I mean, just, so cool. It's the handle reminds me of the 14, which I love. The 14 has a big Bowie blade. I also love the number 1, but never saw this sort of handle with the grooves on the number 1. So this is kind of the best of both worlds for me. Like all Randall knives, this swedge is sharp. You can see that edge. Like even their sort of hunting knives that don't look in any way like weapons are double-edged there. It's interesting. Very sharp and shallow hollow ground bevels here, and an American classic made in Orlando and made famous during World War II. Randall Made Knives are just, I mean, they're real collector's pieces, but people also use them. They also wait 5 years to get them if they special order them or order them from the company. You can find dealers. Knife Center has them frequently. They'll get batches, and that's where I got this one and the next one. The next one was a knife I wanted in this exact configuration, and I was lucky that Knife Center had it. And that is this, the number 2 7, 7 referring to the length of the blade, 2 referring to the model number. This is the fighting stiletto, or combat stiletto. What do they call that? Combat stiletto, I think. Just quintessentially beautiful dagger. You've got the belly, you've got the hollow ground bevels, sharp all the way up to these reliefs here, and it's nice that you can hold it like this. Some people have a fighting style where they come up here. As a matter of fact, I believe that was called the Randall fighting style, with the number 1, with the edge, the primary edge on top, and the secondary swedge on the bottom. But anyway, commando shaped handle. They have a number of different handle shapes, and they all have different names. This one is the commando shape with that beautiful aluminum butt cap and brass guard. God, look at that. I mean, to me, that is like about as classic and perfect as it gets. I've had people comment. I had one guy comment on my video about this. You can see machine chatter. That's not a classic knife. That's a meh. Like complaining and saying, you know, CNC does it better and all this. And I'm like, you're missing the point, but I hear you. I hear you, my brother. All right, let me get a couple more here from the war chest. No, I don't actually call it that. Okay. All right. Here we go. dagger. This one, a beautiful Spartan. Ooh, so this one I have had in my backpack a lot recently. And I carry my backpack with me everywhere, if you know what I mean. And I have it locked up all day, but this is in there just in case. I live in a place, I work in a place, I should say, where you could imagine someone coming in and doing bad stuff. I also have mace taped to the bottom of my desk. I've told my co-workers too, if you're ever here alone and you need mace, you know where it is. But anyway, this dagger makes me feel safe. This is the Marine Raider dagger, designed by Les George and produced by Spartan Blades in their Taiwan factory. Actually, I don't know if it's their factory, but their Taiwan manufacturer makes this. What is this steel? I can't remember what the steel is. I think it's 1095 actually. But here we have a really high quality GFN handle scales and a full tang, including the quillions. I mean, the tang is as full as it gets, and jimped all the way around and textured here, knurled, and then you've got this swell. Oh, this knife feels great in hand no matter how you have it. And Les George is a former Marine. He did explosive ordnance disposal, but he has an abiding love for daggers and dagger history and making daggers, and the 1918 knuckle duster dagger, and he's just daggers all day long. And this knife, being a Marine, this knife came out early in World War II, but due to material restrictions and some weaknesses in the design, they were very fragile. Oftentimes guys would break the tips off and then sharpen the flat there, just to nip it in the bud, knowing that was going to happen. And they had cheap aluminum handles and stuff, so they weren't in production for very long. And then the K-bar came along, and so Les George wanted to give this knife a fair shake with modern materials, and it's freaking awesome. And by the way, even though it's a Spartan blade, it's very affordable. For a Spartan blade, it's like $120. I'm not saying that that's nothing, but it's inexpensive for a Spartan Blades knife. Speaking of Spartan Blades, here's an expensive one. This one I lucked out on the secondary market and got it for a decent price, or for a price that was decent for me at the time. And it came, thankfully, not in Kydex, but in this beautiful Chattanooga leather sheath. Chattanooga Leather Works is a company under the RMJ umbrella. RMJ owns RMJ, which makes the tomahawks, and then they own American Tomahawk Company, and then Chattanooga Leather Works. And man, their leather is just awesome. This you can take off, and you can put any manner of attachment and put it in your belt or just carry it differently. But this is the Harsey design dagger for Spartan. Bill Harsey Jr. is a master knife designer. Just, you know his stuff as soon as you see it. And this one is just astoundingly beautiful to me. It's a little smaller. It's got a very generously sized handle and a 6-inch blade. Those are hollow ground, deeply hollow ground. This one, not so much belly, but the hollow grind and the very thin edge makes it slashable, if you will. There's Bill Harsey's signature S35VN. There's the tree and the Spartan blades. This is G10 machined so nicely, and you've got jimping there, and you've got a noggin knocker. That's the tang coming through the back, and just a wicked, classic, beautiful dagger. All right, beautiful, I know. I say beautiful all the time about every knife because I'm a big knife guy. I like these knives, if you didn't guess. Okay. This is one that started it all in about 1987, I'd say, 87, 88. Towards the end of high school, I had enough money, $115 saved up, to go to, what was it called? Remington Knife Company at the Randall Park Mall and buy this. Can't believe they had a knife store there. But this is the Cold Steel Tonto. This is the original, just straight up Tonto, not the Master Tonto, which I've called it millions of times, and then I've been corrected. Master Tonto was in had Sanmai. This is a Unisteel. Look at this. Let's see, made in Japan. It's like it was typed out with a typewriter. Tonto by Cold Steel, Ventura, California. Beautifully tarnished brass. These Grivery handles have stood the test of time. They are not decomposing and funky and weird. You know how sometimes old plastic can almost feel like gooey, like it leaves a residue. This stuff, not at all. That scratch mortified me after years of having this knife. It went everywhere with me. Next to the bed was where this always lived throughout the end of high school, all throughout college, all throughout single life and married life. This has always been in the drawer or just by next to the bed. And so I'm very attached to this knife. I love this knife. And then I put that nasty scratch in it, trying to make a Kydex sheath for it. And I jacked up the sheath too. So that always really stuck in my craw. I really love this sheath. It is old and it is nearly at the end of its time. But since I don't carry it too much, it should last. Here's a Bark River knife. This is the V44 Bowie in the extraordinarily beautiful leather, full grain leather sheath. This is an A2 tool. I said O1 before. A2 is the steel you get most. That's sort of the default steel from Bark River knives. This is based on that Western style Bowie, which is also that Marine Raider style of Bowie with a big broad belly, a thinner waist here up at the ricasso, and a curved swedge. S-shaped guard. The S shape is stylized here, and man, that brass is thick. That brass is so thick. And then a green canvas micarta Moran style handle. Bill Moran, I guess, is the guy who started this sort of contouring. Bill Moran is the guy who brought Damascus steel back in the day, I believe. Really nice micarta handle. Feels great in the hand. And this is what I think of when I think of Bowie knife. Something that looks just like this. Hey, Buster, you know, what you doing there on my lawn? Kind of Bowie knife. My dad got me this for my birthday, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. I thought that was so cool. He saw me going on and on and on about this. Oh, it must have been less than 8 years ago, because I was going on and on about the release of this on the podcast, and he was like, okay, your birthday's here. I'm going to get you one. Which one do you want? And I was like, let me send you a link. Oh, I couldn't possibly. Let me send you a link. All right, this is another Bark River knife. You'll recognize the sheath, also in a beautiful, beautiful sheath. But this one I had treated for water, and so you can see it darkens up radically. This is the Smoky Mountain Bowie here, and this is a giant. This is a classic shaped Bowie that this blade shape, I believe, Mike Stewart pioneered. Let me get that to stay. Come on now. All right, there we go. I believe Mike Stewart, during his blackjack days, with the Anaconda, was it? It was some blackjack that had this shape with this big giant sort of choil there, or sharpening area, and it was, I know Winchester made a Bowie that they ended up using in Inglorious Bastards with a stag crown handle. Anyway, just again, sort of a swashbuckler, just a big dramatic Bowie blade. I haven't done much with this myself, except walk around menacingly with it. But this has gone to my buddy Kep McNeshart, who has taken this out hunting and stuff and put it through its paces, and tells me she does just great. Okay, I'm like a horse owner, and he took the horse out and rode it. I do love this knife, and there was a time, and it makes me sick to my stomach to think that there was a time when I tried to sell that knife. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I was thinking titanium frame lock or something like that. All right, more. Okay, so here is a break with a couple of small knives that I forgot in the last one. This is the neck knife from Murray Carter. Murray Carter Cutlery, Carter Cutlery Company. He is a master. He trained in Japan and was the town blacksmith and knife maker for years. He was continued a 700-year line of blacksmiths as a Canadian boy. He's incredible. I had him on the show. He's a very nice guy, and he gave me this right off his neck. I mean, he took it off his neck and polished it up and sent it to me, but this was his neck knife. And this is easily, I could get $1,200 for this. And it's a second. So he kept one of his, I cannot figure out what could possibly be wrong with it. To me, it's an absolute masterwork. But Murray Carter and Carter Cutlery Company is a very interesting setup because he'll train bladesmiths and they will work for him, under him, making their riffs on his patterns. And so at once doing work for him, but at the same time making a name for themselves. And they put their maker's marks on and everything. Pretty cool. Here is the Cold Steel. What the hell is this one called? I can never remember these names. Safekeeper 2. Push dagger, hollow ground, super sharp. Had this one a long time. Nicely set up to put in the waistband. You got the flat side here and then all of the action on this side. And man, push daggers, love them. This is the one that Tom Berenger cuts Willem Dafoe's face with in Platoon, except he has it in the old leather sheath, duct taped to his suspenders. That is the Safekeeper 2. A small knife forgotten from the last batch. And then who could forget this, but I did. This is the Ruffian. It's probably in my waistband as I was recording. This is the Ruffian from Hogtooth Knives. This was my 51st birthday knife, and I was at his shop and basically put it together. I didn't put it together, but I said, oh, I like that blue for the liners, and I love this tan micarta, and he had the blade made, and a little while later it arrived at my door, and it's been one of my favorite knives ever since. I love that long swedge. I love the area for your thumb and that jimping, but really this hollow ground blade and edge is just incredible. 154 cm. So when he's not doing these exquisitely forged knives, he does these 154 cm stock removal knives, and man, they are awesome. He's got a nice lineup of them, and I love the Ruffian. All right, well, since we're talking about hogtooth knives, this is the other side of what he does. Super exquisite forged cutlery. This one was designed by me and commissioned by my family for my 50th birthday. Yes, I'm a very lucky guy. And this is what Matt Chase of Hogtooth Knives made for me. A loveless sub-hilt fighter with a double-edged blade, all the way double-edged clip point blade, with the quillion, the sub-hilt set up here, beautiful stag handle, and wrought iron fixtures taken from the Longfellow Bridge in Boston when there was some changes being made there, and a friend of his was an iron worker, got that for him. And this is, I talked about the Trailmaster as my as my dueling knife. Well, I guess this is my dueling knife. I love this thing. Anyway, it means a lot sentimentally, but it's also just an exquisite piece of cutlery. That's 1095 and 15 and 20 Damascus there. Hollow ground, really nicely done. And then the sheath, he also does leather work, which is just, look at the stitching. It's like a machine did it. And then this corseted front frog part, I love. All right. two Tops knives here. This is the Express, the Tops Knives Express by Lacey Szabo, double-edged fighter here. I really like the look of this knife, especially when you hold it upside down. Something about that blade. But this came out 2 years ago. Lacey Szabo is the guy who did the Felony Stop, and he's also designed a lot of very unique fighting knives. He's a former Marine and law enforcement officer, and man, I love his work. So I hope Tops makes more Lacey Szabo. I think the Felony Stop and the Express are a great start, but I'd love to see more of these self-defense-y knives. I love their camping stuff too, but it's just not my ball of wax. But this certainly is. Oops. And then here is the Wild Pig Hunter from Tops. This was a gift from my wife several years ago for Christmas. Man, there's nothing like opening a Tops knife from your wife for Christmas. I mean, how cool is that? I know that sounds corny, but yeah, it's just one of those things that brightened the day for sure. This is based on a Russian knife, Russian military knife, I believe. How did that tip get all bent over? I guess it's not bent over. But very, very rigid with this center T, sort of T construction here. You got this broad center, and then you've got a stepped swedge, and just really, really meant for that kind of thrusting action. And into a wild pig, holy mackerel, those things can move, right? So this is going to dispatch that critter. But not for me, not the suburban dad. This is just going to be brought out every once in a while, shown off and appreciated, as if it were a Picasso or a work of fine art, except this that you can actually do stuff with. And I love fine art, don't get me wrong. I wish I had some Picassos, but I don't. Really, really nice full grain leather sheath on this sucker. Now let me see, I got a bunch more, and should I? Yeah, I may as well just do it here right now. We're rolling here. Okay, next up is the Condor. I believe this is the Norseman Sax. This one is my underwear drawer knife, my sock and underwear drawer. I know you wanted to know that intimate detail, but actually this one just sits there, and if I'm ever dressing and marauders enter the house or whatever, I have this sax here. This is how ridiculous I am. Basically, you know, I just kind of stash knives all over the place. Not because I live the sort of life that requires it, but because I am the kind of guy who just wants that. I want to know that there's a knife within reach wherever I am. Next up is the K-Bar. This was a gift from my brother in 1991, way back then. This is based on the original design that was made during World War II with the very sharp swedge going up to there, and kind of more fighting oriented. And now when you get a K-Bar, which reminds me, I need to get a more modern K-Bar. But when you get a modern K-Bar, it's way more utility based. The swedge is not sharpened. It's a little more robust and a little less bent towards, and it's not hollow ground. It's not as thinly ground as this. It's less bent towards fighting than it is like camping and outdoor survival. But love the classic leather sheath it came with the staples and the stitching. Here is the Off-Grid Knives Grizzly, an awesome kitchen knife. I just used this past weekend. We went up to the mountain house, and well, it's not a house, it's a timeshare. We went up there, and they have crap cutlery, and so I always bring this. Actually, this has replaced the original Grizzly. These are camp kitchen knives, so they're meant to double up. This one here in AUS 10, or AUS 8, I'm sorry, I used to chop down saplings, but this also used to be our kitchen knife when we went to the mountain place. So two great knives. I really like the Off-Grid Grizzly. But this one, the newer one to me, really reminds me of a not a trade knife, a Hudson Bay knife. And I got one of those right over here. Here, this Hudson Bay knife from Condor, just sort of a clip point, work-a-day knife for your average pioneer or trapper. So I'm gonna put this away. This knife, the Condor Hudson Bay knife here, this took out an entire hedgerow that we had when we first moved in here that I removed. I chopped it all down, including the roots, dug out the roots with this. The edge was a mess. I put a brand new edge on it, but this is an incredible knife. I think it's 1075. They make a smaller version of it, but I also love the historical significance of the Hudson Bay knife. Fur trappers and all sorts of pioneer and outdoorsmen use this sort of Bowie-like knife. Next up, from Jonathan Stiles and Newfoundland Knife Company. Jonathan Stiles now has a couple of designs with Kaiser, but he was doing some OEM stuff. This was with Millet knives out in Idaho. Really nice knife. I don't like the red Cerakote, I gotta say, but everything else about this knife is amazing. It's nice and thin and what do you call this? Saber ground, and just really a great outdoors knife. Again, like I said, the aesthetics are a little turnoff, but only the color, and I could change that if I cared to. But what an excellent, excellent knife, and I love his designs, and he's just a cool dude. He seems like an adventurer type who lives up in Newfoundland, and I say that from following him on Instagram. Okay, another knife, medium size, forgotten. Did I show this? I showed this Tex Creek in the last video. That's a Tops Tex Creek. All right, this one I know I didn't show, though. This is the classic Buck 119. Classic hunting knife. Again, one of those knives you could see on the belt of a man in the 40s or 50s or whenever. Just a classic American clip point blade. It used to bother me how thick these, I think it's Celador, how thick these handles were, going all the way up to the width of the guard. But now I like it. It feels good to me now. It didn't used to. But also, if this is a hunting knife, I think it really does need to be full handled. And I think that's what that is. I think it's an attempt to make this as easy to grip as possible if you're using all these different grips for skinning animals and such. Classic knife, the Buck 119. And by the way, I always love the sheath. Oh, I love the sheath too. All right, getting down to the last of it here. I can hear you saying, thank God. Thank God. Okay. BPS knives out of Ukraine. This is the what the hell is this? I don't remember which model this is, but these are incredibly sharp. This comes down to a convexed edge, but it's a Scandi convexed edge. Incredibly sharp. Untreated wood handles feel great, work great. They make a lot of different models, and they're kind of basic, but they are really kind of great. And these sheaths really, man, they hit way above their weight class. Big, thick, sturdy, beautiful, full grain leather sheaths there. Here is the full flat ground off-grid knives Ridgeback, and this is the newer version of the older Ridgeback, which is also a Scandinavian ground knife. So a couple of changes there, but really mostly that edge, and you can feel the difference in weight between these two. Also, the steel is different. 14C28N, a classic outdoor Scandi steel. It is Swedish, and we also know the Scandinavian grind is also Swedish. And then here you have a full flat ground version of it in D2. I've chopped down saplings with this and done some carving stuff with this. Haven't done much with this one. but these are the Ridgeback. The Ridgeback from Off Grid Knives. And by the way, has a nice run of jimping up the back. So maybe you could call those the Ridgeback part of it. From Cold Steel, here's the Rondell dagger, an old-timey design meant for wounds that you can't close with that triangular blade, but also meant for hitting swords and breaking brittle metal and jamming through the eye sockets of helmets and through armor and stuff. Just a nasty sort of spike of a weapon. And that triangular shape was outlawed, I think, in the Geneva Convention, right? You can't have triangular blades because the wounds don't close, and it's cruel and unusual and horrible. Here is a Shed Knives Tonto. Shed Knives, young company. When this was made, this is 154. When I got this one, and I have another shed right over here. This one here, which actually looks more like a Tonto, but it's called the Conqueror or Conquest, I believe. But neither of these knives are heat treated. They did amazing. I mean, I've used them, and lots of people have used them. They weren't heat treated, but they still performed amazingly. But now they are having all of their knives heat treated. I think they heard enough from the knife community. Who knows? Maybe some of it had to do with my interview where he talked about that. But I know a lot of people were a little shocked by that, and so changes were made, and he's pumping these beautiful outdoors knives out. Here's the Cold Steel SRK, and this one is in Carbon V or Carbon 5. I'm not sure what it is, but this was the knife that I bought for my wife in 2006 to put in her bug out bag that she took with her to London. Before we were married, she moved to London for a year and opened up a office for the business she was working for. And it was cool. I was a freelancer at the time, so I could go out and visit her, and we had an interesting year. But this was in her bug out bag. I was very concerned about her being in another country, especially in a country that didn't allow knives of any sort, and then to have her be in a situation where she actually needed one. So this was hers. I guess it technically still is, but you know, we got married, and what's hers is mine, you know, all that stuff, especially when it comes to the knives. All right, as I wrap here, let me just show you these two, and then we're done. Here's Off Grid Knives Backcountry. I call it the back alley because it looks way more like a fighting knife to me than an outdoors knife, but apparently it does pretty well in the outdoors arena. And then last is another Off Grid Knives outdoor extravaganza. I don't even know what this one is called now. I'm sorry, my mind is fried having shown all of these knives in this video. Talking for an hour and 8 minutes. What a disgrace. If you've stayed this long, you're even worse than I am. No, I'm just kidding. I hope you've enjoyed this perusal of my knife collection, and we'll get to swords and exotic weapons, and then I think I'm done. All right. Thanks for watching.